Get Gout Out with by Dr. Mark Bubbs. Thank you all very much. Is a board-certified naturopathic doctor, author, speaker, sports nutritionist for the Canadian men's national basketball team and strength coach. People and those over a decade, diet, exercise, and lifestyle for improving your overall health performance. He is the author of 21st Century Guide, Hunger, and distributor to and Healthier Talks, and advisory board. He presents at health across North America and Europe, NHL and MLB teams, sport medicine clinic at Toronto Athletic Club in downtown Toronto. Before I turn things over, just a recorded and will be emailed to you after its conclusion. If you have any questions during today's webinar, on your screen. At the end of the webinar, we will answer as many questions as possible. The promotion code will be given to you at the end of the presentation and will be available for 72 hours. Thank you all, and I'm going to turn things over to Mark.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for the introduction. I'm just going to bring up my screen here for everyone. Terrific. So thanks again for taking the time out today. I'm going to walk you through a few of the products here today in our talk. Let me just see if we can get our slides moving here. Pause, just bear with me one moment here. Okay, so brief introduction. Organika is widely distributed across 26 different countries, North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia as well. And it's a company that's been around for many years now, since the 1990s. And the mission of the company is to serve, inspire, and contribute to the good health and well-being of people all around the world. And of course, the vision is to become the most trusted in the organic food, vitamin, and dietary supplement brands. And I can say, recently being out to the facilities in Richmond, BC, it's a testament to the quality of the manufacturing and the quality of the ingredients in terms of the products that Organika makes. And so that's why it's been, an honor for me to be partnering up with Organika. So let's talk about something that's very commonly seen today, something that I see a lot in clinical practice, which is gout. So we're going to talk a little bit about the mechanisms and, of course, defining it for you here initially. And gout is effectively an inflammatory type of arthritis caused by the buildup of uric acid crystals. Now, commonly, we tend to think of dietary factors such as things like red meat and wine, which can contribute to gout, but it's a little bit more involved than that. And so if we look here across a cross-section of the global map, we see the areas that are most prevalent in terms of gout. And of course, the Western countries are highlighted here. Of course, America, Canada, not too far behind. We see the UK and European countries, as well as down in Australia. So a very common condition that we see more and more in clinic. And of course, about 8.5, almost about that, towards 9 get diagnosed every year with gout. And it's a good almost 5% of the population. And we see this typically the greatest incidence amongst men. And you can see here as men get older and people get older, we tend to see a greater rise as well. And of course, this is happening in conjunction with some other things. We know that today, 2/3 of the population are classified as overweight or obese. And in America now, the statistics around pre-diabetes, so high blood sugar levels and high levels of the blood sugar hormone insulin, we see 1 out of 2 people, so 50% of the population fall into this category. And what we're seeing is this is strongly associated with increased inflammation in the body, so that's head to toe inflammation. And of course, uric acid is an inflammatory marker, so it makes sense that we'll then see increased incidences of things like gout. Now, of course, the older you get, you do start to increase your potential for gout across the board. Now, I mentioned risk factors, and of course, typically we'll hear in the common medical suggestions will be things like red meat and red wine. That overlooks the major driving cause of things like gout, which is this inflammatory process going on in the body, and that's really largely driven by processed food and sugars. You know, we're up to almost 160 pounds of sugar per person per year in the country. And of course, if you think back, if you go back a couple hundred years to the 1800s, we would only have consumed about 8 pounds of sugar per person per year. And of course, we've been walking around the earth as upright humans for about 2.6 million years. So only in the last 100 years or so have we been able, last 40 years or so has it dramatically increased. And that really 0.001%. This change in our diet has an influence on blood sugar hormone in anemia. So if your insulin levels are likely to be overweight, and all of your across the board, so things like cancers, heart disease, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, etc., are also increased. If you do struggle from the medical conditions I just mentioned, then there's increased likelihood that the increased risk of things like gout. History does play a role we call chronic conditions, and it's really important to note that 9 out of 10 chronic conditions, which means how you eat and how you move and lifestyle factors, are huge driving forces. And of course, using some targeted supplementation, in particular when you're in this acute painful phase, is really important. Now, what causes your pain? Well, again, gout is an inflammatory condition, and we get a buildup of uric acid crystals in the body, in the toe, in the joint, the large joint in the toe, and of course this creates a level of low-grade inflammation and eventually pain. And of course, none of us like to feel pain, but really pain is just a signal that your body is sending your brain that something adverse, something negative is going on, and that's when your brain will then make adjustments in order to attempt to heal that. Now, the problem with the gout is that the inputs that are going in terms of what you're eating are going to play such a massive role. What we then need to do, it's a sign that you need to then take a look into the dietary factors, again, movement, etc., have some roadblocks or what might be causing some of the problems. Now, if we look here at the symptoms, these types of inflammatory conditions are low grade for quite a long time. So high uric acid levels without symptoms, range for uric acid. So even if you notice, or if you ask your doctor, if your range upper end of that range of this likelihood for something like enzymes are a condition, so you'll pre-diagnose when you it's spilling over, and of course your body then has to energy and store it as body fat in the body. You start to get some flares, and of course if you went to the doctor, most of the time they wouldn't even run it. Pain and that big symptoms like high blood sugar. So the tricky part with reverse this acutely with some with diet exercise flares, as you can see here. And this is where life gets here with how you work and how you play and even sleeping. And they tend to wait until the last to impair how they can work and live before they go to the doctor. Tend to be a little bit better than that. They can the wall a little earlier and tend to come in for a more that's what's going on here in the body now. Asymptomatic, you can still have high uric acid levels. And if you do notice that on your blood panels, but you still have no symptoms, it's still a sign for you that something's amiss. Something in your dietary approach is not right for yourself. And this is where, a personalized, because we want to say, hey, how do we change in order to get this back into a range that is, quote, normal, in terms of the normal range. And really the term normal range should more be changed to the common range. It's not inherently normal to have these high levels, but it is very common in the population, right? So again, stage 2, acute flares in the gout, and of course stage 3, this is where you're now starting to see some degradation in the joint, and it's almost like a CD that's on skip. The body's triggering this inflammation. It's not responding, changing, and so this, or again, this inflammation, it's almost like you're filling a pothole in the road over and over and over. Now, current treatments are typically things like, you can use things like ibuprofen, but the research is really clear in terms of the use of NSAIDs. It's very taxing on the liver, really tough on, lead to what's called leaky, so it damages the lung, risk of things like ulcers. Acute approach that you use. Long term, you want to make the right changes so that you can reverse this full stop. And of course, that's where things like supplementation can then dovetail. If you're taking medications, you can dovetail onto supplements to help provide added support. And of course, the lifestyle factors, limiting the alcohol, limiting all the sweetened beverages and added sugars, getting your weight under control are really important steps to help alleviate this. And again, I see this all the time in clinic. I work downtown Toronto here, major city in North America, and once people get a hold of these approaches, it's amazing how they can get long-standing support. And of course, it's nice when in your medicine cabinet, as soon as you feel any of the sensations coming on, then you can have some products like Goutrin here from Organika, which is, again, a nice natural solution that provides a multitude of benefits. So things like vitamin C and the proprietary blend of cherry, thyme, celery, and peppermint are all key factors. So let's take a little bit of a closer look here into how they help in terms of gout. So cherry consumption is good for a lot of things, in fact, but it does significantly reduce the risk of gout attacks. And so you can get some benefit from eating some cherries, but this is a concentrated form that you're going to see more potent in a supplement form. And of course, even in the evening, this is quite nice. People tend to experience more gout attacks in the evening. And cherry is also wonderful as a nice sleep aid. It helps to gently support the production of melatonin, the sleep hormone in the body, and so supporting sleep is also a side benefit here. Celery seed as well is terrific for things like rheumatic pain. Celery extract we see in all types of osteoarthritis and rheumatic pain, and really some significant reductions in pain scores. So like I said, at the onset of discomfort, or if you're on medications and trying to wean off onto something more natural, this is the perfect place to go. And then when we look into various herbs, herbs are such powerful ways to provide flavor to the meals that you're eating, but they're also loaded with phytonutrients, so these plant chemicals that perform wonderful things, and plant chemicals that most of the medications that we use are based off of. And of course, a xanthine oxidase inhibitor, that's what the allopurinol medication is doing for you, and apigenin, which is a flavonoid that you find in these herbs, has the same function. And so if we see here, the foods that you're eating get converted from these hypoxanthines to xanthine and then into uric acid. If we just add more of these natural herbs, in this sense, in the form of a supplement, and of course, whenever you think supplement, you just want to think you're getting a more robust concentration of the active ingredients, okay, than you would do from food alone. And so again, perfect time when you're suffering from the actual bouts of it or you feel something coming on. Apigenin is a great xanthine oxidase inhibitor and will therefore reduce uric acid levels just on its own. We see things like vitamin C intake also strongly associated with lower risk of gout. And of course, we always think of fruit as vitamin C rich food. However, vegetables are the richest source of food. So leafy greens, broccoli, bell peppers are actually pound for pound one of the highest in vitamin C. And so oftentimes when we see a patient or client with low vitamin C intake, for me that lets me know they don't eat enough vegetables and or fruit. And so again, as a nice way to provide support for your clients or people coming into the shops, or if you're listening in and you're looking for some support yourself, then adding more of those vegetables in. And of course, this product has vitamin C to enhance the benefits. Okay, so again, this unique blend is a phenomenal way to just relieve the uric acid. And what most people want is pain reduction in a very short order. And this supplement, again, I use extensively in clinic. It provides that type of support. Terrific. So as we move on here onto more of the immune side. So again, with gout, it's an inflammatory condition. If you are overweight, out of shape, have high blood sugars, consume a high processed food or sugar diet, you're much more likely to have gout. As we move over to the immune system, you know, depending on the time of the year, I live in, again, the east coast of North America. We get a real winter season, the cold and flu season comes on strong. And of course, if you live, no matter where you live, if you travel a lot, then plane travel, etc., will also expose you to more colds and flus. And of course, if you are exercising, if you're in close quarters at work, or you have young kids at home, and again, you know, nothing derails mental, physical performance or quality of life quicker than a nasty cold or flu. So what is B. propolis? Well, loosely termed, it's called Russian penicillin, which is something that's been used traditionally in Eastern medicine for many, many years. It's effectively a resin secreted by trees and then metabolized by the bees themselves. And of course, it contains about 30% beeswax, 55% resins, 10% of these aromatic ethers and oils, and of course 5% pollen. Now, bees live in an extremely sterile environment. A beehive is in fact completely sterile, which is, you know, a really wonder of nature. And so we can actually start to harness some of the antimicrobial properties of bees with things like propolis. And of course, you know, if you use things like unpasteurized honey, which has all this wonderful bacteria that if you are sick is terrific for helping to reverse cold and flu. Just don't use it in infants or children under 1. But propolis is also phenomenal for its antibiotic, antimicrobial properties, so the growth of bacteria, viruses, and fungi. And really what it's doing is it's almost like the caulking in your house. It's filling the cracks in the hive and protecting the hive from invaders with this antiseptic property. It's also a phenomenal source of antioxidants, and this is something that, even going back to the last topic of gout, the more inflammation that we have in the body, the more little fires we have to put out. And of course, antioxidants help to put out those fires. If you're sick, the primary response from your immune system, you have 2 arms of your immune system. One of them is called the innate immune system, which is like the first line of defense, the soldiers manning the wall. And the other is the adaptive immune system, which is like the Navy SEALs, the seek and destroy arm of the immune system. And of course, that innate immune response is inflammation, because that helps to provide blood flow to areas and brings white blood cells. And of course, to help put out some of these little fires, antioxidants are really needed. It's also tremendous for upper respiratory tract infections, things like sore throats. For myself, I travel a lot for speaking in Europe, and it's my, you know, if you travel a lot, it's really difficult because once you're flying, right, you're going to get very is breathing in the same air. So you only circulating, unfortunately, some of those viruses in the air, and it's an easy way to get sick, and I'm sure we've all experienced that taking a long travel day. So this is a It's a great natural antibiotic. Again, it discourages infections. We can use it even with things like burns as well, topically. Dental care is another one in terms of antimicrobial properties in the mouth. And even some mild things like blood sugar support as well is also a nice side benefit of things like propolis. Now the great thing about propolis is you've got a lot of different ways that you can use it. You can use it in the capsulated form. So if you are struggling with low immunity overall, if you just feel sort of like run down, not necessarily an upper respiratory tract infection or a sore throat, but just generally run down, you feel like you're more predisposed to catching something, that's when taking a capsulated form would be terrific. When we look at tinctures, so again, these have a little bit sharper taste. They are nice to mix in. If you have kids, you can mix it into various other drinks, smoothies, etc. to give them a little bit of support. And for adults, it does have a bit more of a sharper taste in the back of the throat, which can be nice and soothing for the throat. My personal favorite, again, is the spray. This is wonderful in kids as well. Fantastic for when you're traveling, really handy, very small. You can keep it in your purse, briefcase, coat pocket, and it's a wonderful way to just really get the back of the throat and keep it, relieve any kind of inflammation, redness, and irritation. So again, lots of options with the bee propolis, something that, as a Canadian, we have cold, dark winters. This was a bad cold and flu season this year, and so anything that you can do prophylactically is really important. And so, for myself, consuming things like more bone broth soups, consuming more orange vegetables that are rich in vitamin A, things like vitamin D are really big, but also on that list would be something like bee propolis for that real acute, not only preventative, so if you feel like you're getting run down, but when you're actually experiencing the sore throat, it's a great way to provide some relief. Terrific. Our third topic here of the day is going to be activated charcoal. And this is one that's been around for a very long time, but in recent years has really grown in popularity. And of course, most people are unaware of really what activated charcoal is. So let's review. It is used to purify, deodorize, dechlorinate, and separate, concentrate things, effectively filtering out constituents. These can be gases or liquids. It's also known as activated carbon. And it's effectively a way of soaking up toxins. And it's something that in the medical field you would use if people did consume or, by accident or whatnot, overconsume a medication, have any kind of poisoning. That's one of its first line therapies. But we can use it in these subclinical doses to help with a variety of other things. Of course, it is totally odorless and tasteless and non-toxic. It is a very dark black color, so being mindful when you do use it. But effectively how it's made, we use this pure carbon, it's extracted in these tremendously long pieces of wood through a controlled heating process. We use very low temperatures. And of course, the residual carbon atoms basically group themselves together in a nice stack, a flat stack of these sheets. And then as part of these sheets, they give rise to pores. And these tiny, tiny pores are phenomenal adsorbents. So they effectively, again, pull in things that are undesirable in the environment, whether it's gas, liquid, etc. Okay. The second part is the oxidation aspect, where it's then treated with oxygen, steam activation at temperatures that are extremely high, and then from there we have this wonderfully porous activated carbon material. And as you can see, these micropores, this gives you a better feeling for what's going on here. The visual on the left, we can see here the different size pores being able to filter out a variety of different size materials. And of course, the tremendous amount of bonding sites makes it, again, phenomenal for soaking up toxins, irritants, etc. And so what makes Organika's activated carbon different than activated charcoal, different than others, is this idea of using a wood-based carbon, okay, which has a wide distribution of these pores, a highly acidic nature, whereas a lot of the traditional ones are used with coconut shell based, and that's going to have a much different distribution of the pore sizes and the actual surface area. So you're effectively getting a higher strength and a faster filtering process with this use of the Organika activated charcoal. Now the health benefits, for me, this is actually one that's been a real surprising and huge win, is the teeth whitening recipe. I'm a big coffee drinker, I'm a big coffee fan. I also drink a lot of tea, green tea, and of course, inevitably this actually kind of starts to stain the teeth and they get a little darker, and you sort of don't notice it over the months. But I started using the activated charcoal, the recipe here for the teeth whitening, and it is pretty phenomenal how quickly it does work. So you just as you see in the picture there, a couple of minutes, I then finish with a regular brushing. And even over the course of a couple of weeks, you'll start to notice a really nice difference. So that's a great way to apply that. And of course, really popular at the moment are ways of using these products and activated charcoal on the beauty side of things. So a facial mask is another popular way, and if you've been to any of the events or in-store events, then this is something that the team will often put on and show people how to do. And of course, it typically lasts about, leave it on for about 10 minutes. And again, you're going to have this experience of having, a facial, a regular facial, and having some of that same detoxification, cleanliness happening to the skin. So really nice, really cost-effective, something that you can, DIY, do it at home. So that's a terrific benefit there. And of course, it's not just the face. You can use it as a body scrub as well. Things like coconut oil are also phenomenal for, they're extremely nutrient dense and tremendous for skin, hair, and nails. And so you can use this combination as well. There's some great recipes on here that will, you'll have access to in this presentation, and you can, try this at home, see how it goes. They are really highly effective. The only little caveat, of course, is it is a very dark black powder, so make sure you're not wearing any of your best white clothes, or put some towels out that you can get a little bit dirty, because it is a dark black powder. But otherwise, it's very highly effective and something that's become really popular amongst all ages. Phenomenal. Well, we've covered 3 great topics. Gout, again, inflammatory condition. If you are overweight, out of shape, consuming a high processed food or sugar diet, and even if you're genetically predisposed, you may be struggling with gout. And of course, the medication allopurinol is highly effective, but things like supplements like Goutrin are phenomenal for reducing that inflammatory action. And then of course, incorporating things that help to lower your blood sugars, like a lower carbohydrate diet, removing sugars, removing alcohol, is a great way to do it. On the immune side, we looked at Propolis. Again, phenomenal way to not only help on the preventative side before you get a cold and flu, but on the actual acute side. If you have a sore throat or are sick, it's a phenomenal way, and you've got multiple ways. If it's the throat, then things like the spray or tincture are great. If it's more systemic, then that's when the pills are a terrific option. And of course, finally, the activated charcoal, more on the beauty side of things. Teeth, facials, and skin, great way to provide yourself a little bit of support at home. Terrific. Well, you can reach out to me. We're going to answer some questions here in a minute. You can connect with me at Dr. Bubbs on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And of course, on my website, drbubbs.com, we've got some free ebooks, a free keto quick start guide, and also what we call a kickstart guide. So diet, exercise, and lifestyle 2-week plan for you. And both of those are free ebooks, so you're welcome to go over there and download those. Of course, stay connected with us as well at Organika Health on all the mediums as well, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. It's the best place to ask questions, and we can get you some fantastic answers. And I think today we're going to hand it over here, and we're going to answer any burning questions that you have on the topics that we discussed.
Thanks, Mark. That was great, full of information. I do have a few questions I want to get into. The first one is gout curable?
Absolutely. Gout is totally reversible. Gout is, again, this systemic inflammatory condition. It's basically your body telling your brain that something's out of balance, that the inputs going into the system are not agreeing with your body. And so it's a totally reversible inflammatory condition. So what you need to do, again, reduce the carbohydrate intake in the diet, reduce the sugar intake, reduce the alcohol intake. And most of the time there's going to be some, if you are overweight, that's one of the problems. So any type of weight loss is going to help. And it's not a lifelong sentence. If you consume a lot of vegetables, you can more than happily consume those things. They're very fats, and red meat is oleic acid, which is this very healthy on hand. If for whatever this trip you've got a busy richer meals, or perhaps like to, and want to have that pain on quite quickly and quite rapidly, and notice that your energy levels ebb and flow a lot in the day. Your blood sugars will be going up and down. Those will be some early signs. But regardless of where you stand, even if you have a really bad gout, you can absolutely 100% reverse that condition. You've just got to get back to really what's the inputs in the system. So again, your diet and exercise are huge. And again, this is where using things like supplements like Goutrin, and if it's really bad, starting off with medications like allopurinol are ways for you to start reversing that extensive inflammatory process, cooling it down, and then that way the lifestyle modifications and diet can really take shape, and you'll be good as new. I've had clients who had gout for 5-10 years, and since making these types of changes, since using things like Goutrin, 2, 3, 4 years on, never a problem with any more gout.
Thank you. If someone is told that they have crunchies in their feet, is that gout? It's been said that it's the uric acid crystals.
That can be a tricky one. If you're not working with a practitioner, I mean, people tend to have very tight connective tissue on the bottom of your foot. The connective tissue is about 1 inch thick. And of course, if you're naturally tighter or stiffer, if you stand a lot, actually, if you have high blood sugars, the stickiness when you touch sugar and your hands get all sticky. If you have a high blood sugar levels or high sugar diet, that's what happens to your muscles and to your connective tissue. And so things will, can creak a little bit or make some sounds. And so it's not always the case, but if you do have noticeable pain in the one joint in the toe and not so much in other joints, then that will let you know that that's likely an issue. And again, if you notice that if you do have high belly fat, that's a great first indication that your uric acid levels are likely high and that you can just make some tweaks to help get things under control.
Thank you. Can you stay on Goutrin as a permanent maintenance product?
I would say you definitely can, in the initial phases, some people will be on it for 4 to 8 weeks. Some people might be on it for 3 or 4 months. Some people even 6 months. I would say, it's best used in that 8 to 12 week range to get things under control. If it takes you longer to make the diet and exercise and lifestyle changes, if you're, further down the road, then you can certainly take it for longer than that. I would say after that, though, once you get things going on the diet and exercise front, then you can, have it reversed. And then what the Goutrin is really nice for is to have in your medicine cabinet for, again, those moments where, you're slipping a little bit, you don't realize that your diet's changed, and all of a sudden it comes on quite strongly. So it's always nice to have it in that medicine cabinet so you can get to it right away.
Great, thank you. We have time for one last question. What complications can occur when gout is left untreated?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely one where, unfortunately we see this more and more. As I mentioned, 1 out of 2 people now in the population are classified as pre-diabetic or diabetic, which is just a, mind-blowing statistic. It means that most everyone is consuming a diet that's far too high in sugars and processed food, and that will lead to high levels of inflammation and uric acid. And of course, if you let it stand too long, eventually the inflammation is there to try to fix the joint. But as I mentioned in the talk, it's almost like you start repairing the pothole over and over and over again. And so you'll start to get damage to the joint, and eventually it'll become irreversible damage. You'll actually get structural damage. You won't be able to what's called dorsiflex, which is kind of lift your toe up without any discomfort. So even if you did like a lunge or some of these movements, even walking, when your toe has to bend a little bit, would become painful, and for some, potentially permanently painful. You do have to go quite far down the line to get into that permanent stage, but if you've been struggling with it for a while and just quote unquote living with it, which I think unfortunately, a lot of guys do that. They just live with pain. It's a really straightforward solution. I'd say the number one thing clients tell me when we fix their gout is that, geez, I didn't realize it was so easy. And so things like Goutrin are a great first start, adding in these dietary changes that are actually quite straightforward. And it's phenomenal how all of a sudden months or years of pain are gone and you don't have to go down that road anymore.
Thank you so much. We're going to wrap things up now. Thank you all again for attending, and thank you, Mark, for all of that information. If you have not done so already, please register for our upcoming webinars. For more information, please visit LuckyVitamin.com and search keyword webinar. You can also shop the site right now. These products are on new brand promotion for the month of June.